We are living in unprecedented times. Not only have we entered the age of Aquarius, but we've entered the age of AI. Humanity is about to undergo the most dramatic transformation ever, and I believe that makes it the perfect time for us to address the global mental health crisis. I believe it is through raising human consciousness that we gift people with the tools they need for emotional and mental mastery. Hi, I'm spiritual teacher and speaker, Shaman Isis, and I'm on a one-woman mission to raise human consciousness by teaching spiritual practices and sharing incredible people's heroes' journeys. Join me on Glow Up with Shaman Isis for inspiration for your hero's journey. If you're ready for transformation, check out Glow Up with Shaman Isis, the collection of books and courses. Hi, and welcome to Glow Up with Shaman Isis. You guys, it is summertime in Florida, and I am back for another episode of our fabulous podcast. If this is your first time here, Glow Up with Shaman Isis it interviews authors and leaders and entrepreneurs about their journey and what they're working on. And we talk about topics that are important to humanity. And today I'm so delighted to be talking about a topic that has actually been on my list now for a couple of months. First, let me welcome my guest. My goodness, welcome Shelby Watson Hampton to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you share a little bit about who you are with our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. The conversation we had before this was so amazing. So I can't wait to expand on it here. So I'm going to give the quick 60-second speech on me, right? So I live in Southern Maryland, which is about an hour south of Washington, D.C. We have a family farm. I farm with my husband, my aunt, and my uncle. We have a vineyard, a winery, and a wedding barn, which is a lot of fun and a little crazy. And I work a day job at a nonprofit that also works with farmers. And then I have my own little side hustle, of course, because everybody does these days, building a community of women in rural living, like in country living, farmers, ranchers, rural entrepreneurs, women who are in that space and want connection and, a place to kind of vent occasionally and figure out how we live our best version of this life. And that's kind of what I do. It's a lot of hats, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm so excited because you work in like several industries that are, to me, some of the most important that we should be having more conversations about as a country. So, I mean, got between the barn and the weddings and the vineyard and the farming and the fact that you're working with farmers and as well as building a community, this is going to be such a juicy conversation. So before we started recording, we were having this amazing conversation about kind of where farming stands now in the country and some of the challenges that with a lot of people not really understanding the issues within farming. So can you just touch on the kind of the industry and where it is kind of right now? I know that's a big question, but we can keep going until you feel like it's satisfied.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to keep it fun and, like you said, juicy. All right. So let's start with some fun statistics. Okay. So picture the population of the US, right? The whole country, like you're looking at the map. 100% of the people that live in the US are fed by 2% of the people in the US. So farmers and ranchers and rural small businesses make up less than 2% of the US population. Of that 2%, 36% are women. And that number has been rising every year, according to the USDA census, which goes out every several years. Women are having a resurgence in agriculture. They've always been there, right? They've always been in the background. You think typical farm mom, farm wife, she's keeping the house, she's feeding the farmhands, she's doing the chores in the barnyard, she's, keeping the books, running to town and getting parts, doing what she's doing. But a lot of times in previous generations and decades, those women weren't counted as part of the business or as part of the industry. Now they're being counted, and also now they're taking over family farms and they're coming up in the industry. There are more young women in 4-H and FFA than young men right now, which are some, pre-college agricultural groups. And the rise of women in this business is happening. And so with that, organically comes a lot of other things that women bring to business, right? Intuition, gut instinct, maternal nurturing. We're seeing a change in the landscape. And that's been really fun for me to watch. But at the same time, there's a lot of hardship here. Farmers and ranchers are under a lot of stress with the tariffs that are happening. They're under a lot of stress with the changing climate and the weather. They're under a lot of stress with the lack of labor availability. Certain Americans don't want to do certain types of jobs, trying to find, foreign labor. That's a big topic we won't get into right here, but it is something really important. And all of these tie into the larger American discussion of what's going on right now. And it's important because food security is really important for everybody in this country. And the farmers and ranchers are the ones, who are growing and raising this product. And I know you deal a lot with, AI, which we talked about a little bit. That's another huge resurgence here. Farming is very technologically advanced. A lot of people don't realize that, but there's even several farming groups that work closely with NASA, and I sit on
Oh,
one of
how
their boards.
cool.
Yeah, it's called the NASA Acres Program. Like acres because you farm in acres. It's an acronym, but it connects the satellite data with the farmers on the ground who are doing the work. And there's a lot of technical advancements being made in this industry for conservation, sustainability, labor, and a lot of the science that goes behind it, people don't know, you know. So AI has obviously integrated itself with that. And on the base level, you're having conversations about AI ethics with women like us who run a small business, and they're using AI for their copy content and for their social media and for their farm newsletter. And, that's a great tool, but you also get into the question about authenticity, which is really important
Hmm.
to today's consumer too. And like using it as a tool, but not as your entire toolbox, in your business. And there's just a lot happening on all the levels.
Yeah, I think it's such a fascinating topic because it doesn't get the coverage, but it's there's the hierarchy of needs, and food is way up there. It's frankly, without it, we're kind of toast, and yet we don't really hear about it or talk about it. When I was growing up in Tennessee, there were farms everywhere. There were horses and cows and all. I mean, I saw it all. But even in school, I remember a little bit like the classes where they would learn to fix cars and learn carpentry, hands-on craftsman skills. There was a huge percentage of the guys, particularly, that did farming, and they were taught how to farm. The equipment was a part of the school, like equipment, and it was actually really supported. And so I would love to see us get back to a place where, as a country, not only do we, as an average person, understand the importance, the value, how it actually operates, but we support small farmers all over the country, and we support people learning at a young age how to grow their own food and what that it means, and be able to value it as a skill set. Are you seeing a resurgence in the country of interest in farming?
Yes, and I love this. So where we are in Maryland, just right outside of DC, so we're in an urban area, but there is pockets of rural country, and that's where we're working in. We have a huge new and beginning farmer surge. So new and beginning farmers are classified as someone who hasn't farmed more than 10 years and is getting into it kind of like on their own. Okay, so not your generational farmer who maybe
Hmm.
came from their parents and grandparents, but you're talking a lot of folks right out of college or right out of high school, and then second careers. Folks worked in technology, or they were in the military, or they were corporate for 20 and 30 years, and they got burnt out, and they're like, I'm going back to the land. I want to throw myself into something that's more hands-on. And so where I work in my day job at a nonprofit, we have beginner farmer programs. We have grants for them. We work with a finance place that will also do like low interest agricultural loans. The USDA has beginner farmer rancher programs where you can also get grants and assistance. And every state in the country has an extension program. Typically, it comes out of your land grant university. So for us, it's University of Maryland. So for us, it's University of Maryland Extension. But you can Google the one in whatever part of the country you're in when you're listening to this. And they have programs just for farmers, new, beginning, established, diversifying, organic, conventional, and their stuff is free. And so you can tap into that and help build your business. It's wonderful because there's a lot of interest, but it's very challenging because the top three barriers for these new and beginning farmers are access to land, being able to afford land and equipment, and labor. So we run into that, and so try to help people through that process and get more established. But we are seeing it and we need it. I'm going to finish with one more statistic on this. The average age of the farmer in the US right now is 58. They're going to be aging out. They're going to be retiring, and there's going to be a massive gap in people who can come in and fill those shoes. So we have been trying to encourage, we as an industry, been trying to encourage people to get in and to break down some of those barriers to make it, a better way of living and a better way of doing business.
That's so interesting. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I remember watching as capitalism ate up a lot of industry. I watched Walmart come in and take over. I watched imports increase dramatically and get crappier and more toxic every year. And I watched processed food take off. And so the small farmer really got kind of eaten alive, like many industries. It's just like Walmart killed all the mom and pop like tool shops and hardware stores, I should say, and things like that. That's something that I watched happen to that industry. Are you seeing a resurgence, kind of a return to? I mean, is it sort of taking back off again, or are imports still like eating us alive? Um,
So yeah, what you're talking about in the 80s and 90s, it happened in the farming industry. And it happened, it was like the go big or go home mentality. The go bigger or get out is actually what they call it. Go big or get out was the
mhm.
phrase. And so it was buy more land, buy more equipment, go more in debt, owe more to the seed companies, owe more to the equipment companies. If you're not making big enough, then there's no room for you here. That did a huge disservice. We are still struggling with trying to come back from that 80s and 90s mentality. We're making strides because people are committed to it, bringing the middleman back, bringing the small farmer back, bringing the diversified and niche farmers back. Of course, we still need big ag, and I'm not anti big ag. I am pro everybody ag. So we need the big
Yeah.
guys to feed the world. Okay, right? What, 9 billion people on the planet or something like that? We need the big guys who can do it ethically and sustainably to feed the world. But we also need the smaller and the middle men who can feed their local communities and can do it on a smaller scale and create jobs in the community and create sustainability there and the actual feeling of knowing your farmer and knowing your neighbor. Um, America's trying to come back to that. I think we're trying to rebuild community after being separated for so long. And food and wine, I might add, and any other product that's agriculturally based is a great way to do that. But really
Mhm.
quick before I forget, I'm a huge book nerd, but there's a book. Okay, you guys remember the movie Aaron Brockovich,
Uh-huh.
right? Julia
Yeah.
Roberts, Aaron Brockovich in the story. She was like small town woman, went after the big chemical company. That was like, there's a book called The Farmer's Lawyer, and it's by Sarah Vogel. And she's
Mhm.
basically the Aaron Brockovich of the farming community. And she took on the US government in the 80s and 90s when they were decimating family farms and foreclosing on them through an old USDA program. And she represented what they call the North Dakota Nine. And it was 9 farmers in North Dakota and her who like went to bat in a very David and Goliath story about big ag and big government. And I've never met this woman, but I'm a huge stan. So if you want something juicy that's real, The Farmer's Lawyer.
Yeah. I've heard of her before. I think I remember that. I've definitely heard of the case that you're referring to. Yeah, well, one of my big things that I beat a lot is that the drum I beat on a lot is that I have an eco fashion collection. I worked in fashion for a really long time, and I got very frustrated because I had an agency and I was working with all these brands and I worked with a lot of fashion brands, and I just kept seeing that there wasn't a whole lot of effort to try to make sustainable clothing, because it was just all about profit, all about profit, all about, and I think that's literally killed
Hmm?
this. It's actually still killing this country. The capitalistic all for profit idea is so stupid because it's short-term gains for long-term destruction. And so I
No,
got really
that's
frustrated. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, that's really fascinating. I could talk on that for longer than we probably have. I another thing I do is I write editorials for agricultural publications, so a couple of newspapers and a couple of magazines. And I did an article on like recently the recommitment to sustainable fiber and fabric that some folks are doing and how they're tying it to certain farms where they're getting their cotton or their wool or their angora or whatever they're using and how that was coming up and why it was important. So I love
Yeah.
that. That is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. So I was getting frustrated. So I produced my own collection, which was the pain of 2 years. It took 2 years to produce a small collection in this country because of how challenging and how difficult it has been made. And to try to get away from going to Asia for
Mhm.
all of it was very difficult. It really gave me this up close and personal, like, oh my God, no wonder they don't do it, because it takes time, money, patience, engineering. The design aspect of each piece alone is its own nightmare. And I think of our food in the same way. Like, how much of our farming issues does the fact that imports were allowed to just sort of get out of control? I mean, I believe we should be an exporter of things and not a country that just imports stuff from other countries and makes them rich while we're not making or selling anything.
Yeah,
So,
so ag imports and exports are a huge discussion. Yes, and we do a lot of both. We do export and we do import. And those have changed over the years. I am by no means an expert in the trade of those
mhm,
products, but normally when you're talking like imports and exports, a lot of the stuff we're exporting is going to be grain. So corn, soybeans, things of that nature. Um, Unfortunately, we bring in a lot of beef. Like we bring in a lot of beef from like Argentina and Brazil, where there's a push right now to eat more local American beef. And we raise a lot here too, but we import a lot. And that brings up questions on ethics and carbon footprint and, buying local versus shipping something from overseas. And, what are their sustainability practices or their humane animal raising practices? But a lot of stuff you see in the supermarket, unless it says, American raised or, American made, it's coming from somewhere else. So
yeah.
there's a huge push in the ranching community, and some great people doing good work there.
People have also been trained into cheap. This is another thing
Yeah.
that annoys me. It's like the whole like sheen
Mhm.
and get it, but have no understanding of what investment shopping is and or supporting. So the same thing happens. I've noticed with American made. It gets talked about a lot. People like to say it. Oh, support American companies, but then you actually look at their purchases. And the vast majority of them are about the cheapest thing, and we have to get to a place where we can plan forward and be willing to take the short-term pain of creating long-term health
Yeah.
in our industries. Is that you see the same thing in
Yeah.
farming?
And the conversation that comes into that too is when we talk about food access, which is really for, accessibility to local, fresh, and affordable food. And you look at the millions of Americans that go hungry or having to use benefits like the SNAP and the WIC and the EBT. Um, and many of these folks are working hard and they're working multiple low income jobs and they can't afford the premium price that a lot of places have to put on local food because the work that does go into it. Like I said, people have gotten addicted to cheap. And I acknowledge the privilege that comes with, being able to have enough income to buy the quality product that does cost more because there are some families who cannot do that. And that's a larger conversation too of where we are in this country when it comes to working class families and
Hmm.
prices they can afford and what things are being charged and the rate of inflation. And yeah, it's so nuanced and it's complicated and it's all shades of gray. I
Yeah.
think the best thing for folks is it's kind of like do what you can when you can, be a conscious consumer, but know that everyone goes through ups and downs. There might be times in your life when you can't afford to do that, but when you can, it's great. And not everything has to be based on money either. So capitalism does train us that way. But sharing a farmer's Facebook post or posting about a farmer that you like on Instagram or sharing their product costs nothing. Even if you're not buying it, other people might be able to. Showing up at a farmer's market and greeting your farmers and just buying a couple small things makes a big difference. Supporting community efforts to naturally engage sustainably is important, and there's a lot of resources out there for that too.
Yeah, I would love to see. I'm a big fan of farmers markets. I would actually love to see farmers markets in every city across the country be financially supported by the country, so that
Oh God, wouldn't that be nice?
yeah,
You
it
talking my
really
language.
yeah, it really would be, and it also gives people access to healthier food and a community environment in which to learn more about food and engage with their farmers. And community creates love, and love really is what drives the world forward. And it sounds silly to some people, but it's like, no, events in our towns and cities across the country that bring people into an area together has been shown scientifically to raise the to help in so many different ways. I also want to
Yeah.
say it very spiritually, like it raises the vibration. That's my wording, but they measure it in different ways. Um, yeah, and another thing that I think is really important too is that, I'm so glad to see that we're going after the processed foods. But I think we need to parallel the going after processed foods and pharmaceuticals and all that with how are we going to actually create better things in other areas. And one of them is our food. Soil is a topic that I have talked about for a really long time. I wrote about it in my first book. because a lot of people don't understand that a lot of our soil that keeps getting reused has been depleted of its vitamins and minerals. So it apparently, they say, takes one orange, I mean, 7 oranges approximately to equate the vitamins and minerals of one that was raised when I was a child. Is soil a topic of conversation in the farming world? I mean, I'm
Oh,
sure it
it
is.
is. I mean, it's the conversation. And full disclosure, my husband is a farm planner at our soil conservation district. So soil is a conversation in our household frequently. And there is actually another plug. There is a soil conservation district in every county in every state. Find yours. Okay. They do pollinator gardens. They give grants. They will come out and test your soil. They'll help you plant something in your backyard, or if you're, doing urban farming or rural farming, there's a soil conservation district in every county in every state. And you can Google them. And there is a quote, and I'm going to forget. I can see this image of the quote and the gentleman who says it, but I'm going to forget his name. It goes, most people don't know that we owe our existence to a 6-inch layer of topsoil, and the fact that it occasionally rains. It's like the entirety of the human condition is based on 6 inches of topsoil and the fact that we occasionally get rain.
Yeah.
Because that's where we get our food. So yes, I have several friends of mine who have gone through college and got their master's and their doctorates just in soil. That's what they do. God forbid you call it dirt in their presence. It's not dirt, it's soil. It has millions of living microisms and things in it. So yeah, um, so much I could say on it. It is the basis of life.
It really is. And when it's in crappy condition, the food's in crappy condition, which eventually leads to chronic illnesses and issues within humanity, the cycle of life. Um, it- I just lost my train of thought completely. I was like, what was I going to say? Uh, what are some surprise? Because you brought up a few things there. I think about the soil that I think some people will find surprising, unless they're holistic or a healer or a farmer, that kind of thing. What are some other things about farming or the farm world or the challenges that people might find surprising?
Well, we'll jump off the soil thing and kind of go in that direction. So we were talking about the soil conservation districts. Their whole mission is to preserve soil, to preserve environments, to help farmers farm sustainably with the environment. And so they have what they call BMPs, best management practices. So BMPs, like in our area of the country, are going to be grass waterways. So putting grass that is to catch any runoff from the farm field before it hits a waterway, like a creek or a pond or a river. Buffer strips for the same reasons. Doing no-till drilling, which means you're not turning over the soil, so you're not drilling into it. Like when you think of an old-fashioned farmer plowing a field, you think of the plow turning the soil over. A no-till drill just does a quick little hole where it can drop the seed in. It doesn't actually turn the soil, which helps
Hmm.
prevent erosion. It helps keep carbon in there and carbon capture. It helps keep runoff from happening. Another BMP is like a pollinator habitat, right? We again, we owe a lot of our lives to pollinators too. Like the bees are out there doing the work,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
butterflies, the pollinators. So things of that nature. And a lot of farmers are doing this, and people don't know about it. And you don't know what it looks like. You're just driving by a field and you see like a grassy patch in the distance that isn't being worked, and it's got like some scraggly looking things in it. That might be a wildlife plot. That might be a pollinator plot. That might be a grass buffer strip that's actually preventing. And one thing the farming world has been really, really good about over the last 20-ish years or so is investing money and time and resources into conservation. And so there's a saying in the farming world that farmers are the first conservationists, we're the first environmentalists, because they work
Hmm.
closely with the animals in the soil. And they base their livelihood off of it. Like they're feeding their families off how good they can do this. And you don't want to deplete your family farm. You want to keep it as holistic as possible. Being said, you do need to do certain things. I mean, there are certain parts of the country where we're growing food that, it does need to be sprayed. That's going to be unavoidable. There are a lot of pests out there. But there's organic sprays. There's sprays that are very, very controlled. You can be very careful with. You can do your best management practices. But it's constantly kind of a push and pull between like the latest and greatest science and a bit more or holistic approach. And so most people kind of balance that. They straddle the line somewhere in the middle.
If you're ready for transformation, check out Glow Up with Shaman Isis, the collection of books and courses. Can you paint a little bit of a picture for our listeners about how AI could be utilized to support farming in
Yes,
America?
I will put a
She's
caveat
like,
in
yes,
there.
I love
Um,
it.
it's funny because before AI, as we know it, artificial intelligence, ever existed, I mean, ever existed, in the farming world, AI refers to artificial insemination. Okay. Artificial insemination is when you're breeding your animals and you don't do it live cover, you do it, yourself,
Mhm.
which has been a best practice for a lot of industries over the years. So now when we're in the industry of ag and we talk about AI, you have to caveat artificial insemination or artificial intelligence. Do what you will with that metaphor. I'm sure there's something Freudian in there. I don't know. But yes, AI, I think, is both a burden and a blessing. I think it's going to be like any technology we create. It can be used wonderfully or it can be used horribly. And it's up to us as a human society, a collective, which you're working a lot on, to come to kind of the ethical parameters of this and how we're going to do it. But a lot of folks don't realize the science that goes into ag and has been for decades. Like some of the most cutting edge science is coming out of the agricultural industry. They call it like precision application, precision conservation, and so AI is wrapped all up in that too. So I was at a farming workshop just last week where a company came in that had created a drone for the land. So think of it like a Roomba. It was like a farm Roomba, and it was like 10 feet tall and maybe like 16 feet wide with a very small footprint. Just had these two little wheels, and it goes down the rows of the field and can look for weeds and pests. It can basically scout for the farmer, like see what's in the field and take live
Wow.
video and picture and identify these things. And it runs completely off solar. It's got solar panels on the top, completely off solar, so no electric needed. Charges itself. It can be out in the field all year round. They made it super sturdy. It sends videos and things right back to the farmer's phone. The farmer can run it from a phone or an iPad. And it was funny because I was watching this thing in the field and I was like, oh my God, that's cool. And it turned around and started coming back to us. And I looked up and the engineers had put eyeballs on it, okay? Digital eyeballs on the front. And it's blinking at you as it's coming back down the field. And I was like, oh my God, it's a giant Tamagotchi. I'm really aging myself now. Um, and it's just looking at this thing and you're like, it's cool, it's sustainable, it's helping with the conservation, it's helping with the farmer's time and the fact that they don't have a lot of labor, and it's AI, and here it is, and it's great, but then you also look at AI as like, oh my God, the robots are going to take over the world, and what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So I think like any industry, it's happening. We have to have the conversations. There is no getting off this train, right? Humans have committed to this. Like the AI revolution is happening now. And the people that want to stop it or go backwards, that never works, right? Like that
Yeah,
never
it
works.
never will. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, God, and before we started recording, we were talking, and you had mentioned that 36% of farmers are now women, which I think
Yes.
is really cool. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yes, I love it so much. So women have historically been involved in family farms and family businesses, since the beginning of time, but they weren't counted in the USDA agricultural census. When you click the box for farmer, they weren't counted until a couple of cycles ago. And so now women are writing that they're a primary operator or a co-operator or a secondary operator of a farm or a family business. They're not just feeding the family and doing the farm books and running to town for parts, and picking their husband up and moving equipment. They're doing that, and that's a big part of it. But a lot of women are taking over the family farm, getting into farming on their own, starting their own businesses. And yeah, 36% of all farmers in the country are now women. And the number goes up every time they do a USDA census. And you talked about, by the way, you said you're from Tennessee. I heard a twang in there, and I know you're in Florida. And I was going to say, I wonder if she's like the west side of Florida, but I caught that little southern bit there, which I love.
Yeah.
You were talking about growing up in Tennessee and how there were farm programs for kids.
Hmm.
There still is a very active Future Farmers of America. They go by just FFA now, and 4-H in a lot of parts of the country. And so, kids get in that and they learn different farming practices and different skills. And the right now in 4-H and FFA, the girls outpace the boys. More women are interested in the industry than ever before. And what
Hmm.
comes with that is women approach work and life differently, right? Think maternal instinct, think women's intuition, think like multitasking and more of like a holistic 30-foot thousand view. What we're seeing coming out of this is a rejection of the way we've traditionally been told farms and businesses have to run, which in the farming community, it's work yourself into the ground until you burn out or die. Okay. And that's why there's a huge farmer mental health crisis, which we don't have time to talk about here, but you can Google it. The farmer suicide rate is one of the highest in the nation of any industry.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Wow.
there have been groups working on that now for 8 to 10 years. But women coming in are making a difference in the fact that this generation specifically, I'll say younger Gen X, elder millennial, through the lower millennials right now are kind of in that age range. They're like, I'm not going to do this till I'm not going to work myself into the dirt. Like, I'm going to take breaks. I'm going to relax. My family will go on a vacation, even though we're farmers. We'll find someone to come in and take care of the animals. That whole 24/7, 365 burnout is a badge of honor is slowly changing. And I credit a lot to that for women coming into the industry and realizing like this needs to be more holistically done.
Yeah. And I think AI will really help with that.
Yeah.
Uh, wow, I could just keep talking to you and picking that brain. Can you take a minute to share a little bit about the vineyard and the wedding barn and all this
Yeah.
lovely you've got a million things going on, like so many of us these days.
Yes, we do. Thank you for that shameless ability to pitch. No.
I
Um,
love your frankness.
yeah, we are Robin Hill Farm and Vineyards. You can find us online. We are actually women run and women owned. My aunt owns the farm. And then my aunt, myself, and both of our husbands own the business collectively together. So we're fourth generation. I'm raising the fifth coming up now. He was helping me clean stalls this morning before we got on this interview. So we are open all year round. Basically, we take a quick break in January, but basically February through December, and we ship wine. So you can find us if you want to ship stuff out. We only sell wine on the property at our farm winery or through online. And we've won some national and international awards, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And so that's my aunt and uncle are there full time. My husband and I are there nights and weekends. We work other full time jobs. I mentioned that he's in the soil conservation district. I work for an agricultural nonprofit that helps farmers market their products, connect consumers, like utilize resources. So I'm in the farming industry for my day job. And then I have my own little side hustle called The Farmed Life. And The Farmed Life is online. You can find me on Instagram, on the website, LinkedIn. The Farmed Life is what I started as a collective gathering place for rural women, women in farming and ranching, entrepreneurial, small town, as a place to gather, share resources, find connection, bitch and moan occasionally because we all need a little therapy every now and then. And I provide resources there, and I feature a lot of other women. And out of that came the book that I wrote and published just about 18 months ago. That was actually number 1 in its category on Amazon.
Do you have a copy? Where is this book
I,
at?
you know what? Literally, my mother came over last night and was like, "My girlfriend in my bunco club needs a copy of your book. Will you sign it?" And I gave it to her. So I'm sitting here in my house with no copy in front of me, but I'm going to tell you the title. It's Grace, Grit, and Lipstick.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And that's the full Grace, Grit, and Lipstick. And then it's for the modern farm woman and her curious farm friends, like her farm curious friends. So not just farming or ranching women, but people who are interested to get a peek behind the curtain on this world we've been talking about in here. It shares some heartfelt stories. It shares some challenges. It shares some great statistics. I feature 15 other farm and rural entrepreneurial women in there, mostly in the US, but a few in Canada, and what they do. And you can find them online and stuff. And it's been a lot of fun. So Grace, Grit, and Lipstick, if you want to find it, by Shelby Watson Hampton. It is everywhere books are sold.
I love it. Now, you guys, I'll put links in the text for the podcast so you guys can go check them out. Shelby Watson Hampton, bestselling author, philanthropist, mom, wine producer. I mean, just I love the dynamicness of all of that, and women's advocate.
Thank you.
Just an incredible mix of caring for the community. And we need that so much. So thank you. Gosh, thank you so much for coming on the show.
This has
You
been so
got
much fun, and I feel so connected. Like, we're gonna be friends now. I know we've already connected online, but like, this is gonna be stuff in the DMs. Okay, this is gonna be like 3 a.m. I'm thinking, and I'm gonna be like, I gotta text her.
Yeah,
And
no, seriously. It felt like I felt like talking to somebody I've known forever, which is awesome.
I love that synchronicity, and I do think that's spiritual, and I do think that's a vibration. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Speaking of spiritual, if you're not already subscribed to the Glow Up with Shamanisis podcast, what are you thinking? It's intelligent listening where we laugh, cry, and share, the battles and talk about important topics that matter to the future of humanity. We have entered the age of AI and the age of Aquarius, and it's a time of extraordinary change. And we, as a collective, can manifest the future that we envision together, one that benefits everyone and not just a handful of people and powerful companies. If that's the kind of thing that interests you, you might want to go check out those kinds of topics. If that interests you, you might want to go check out some of my books. I've got Memory Mansion, which is my memoir, Unleash the Empress, which shares my spiritual practices, and A New American Dream, which is about how America can use the artificial intelligence to reignite the dream. And we need that. We need to use this fourth industrial revolution to put ourselves back on the map because we've lost a lot over the last 20 years because capitalism kind of sold us out. And that's just truth. It's not me whining, but we can't face our problems if we don't talk about them honestly. And if you love to come together with other people who speak the truth and want to build a beautiful future, then you have to join us September 4th in Boca Raton at the Countess de Hornley Theater. We are hosting the Soltech Future Festival, which is a benefit for the Soltech Foundation. That's my foundation to bring practices that create beautiful lived experiences to underserved communities. Everything from yoga and meditation to basic AI skills to help people in underserved communities be able to succeed in this new world we've entered, and most importantly, to help turn the tide of the mental health crisis. So come join us at the Soltech Future Festival. You can learn more about it at soltechfoundation.org, and you can learn more about my work and books at shamanisis.com. And that took a lot longer to say than I was expecting it to, but you guys go check it out. I'm sending you love and wishing you all the most beautiful, beautiful summer. And Shelby, thanks again. I'm going to be talking to you.
I think we have collaborations in our future, and I love this. And thank you so
Yeah.
much for thinking of me and allowing me to be on the podcast and to speak to your guests. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it. Go be with that little one. Enjoy your weekend, Shelby. Bye, you guys. Have a great week. If you're ready for transformation, check out Glow Up with Shamanisis, the collection of books and courses.